A little before I became a Christian, I finally asked my parents, why am I different? Because for years, I would always fail to not really understand anything anyone is saying. Not in real life, not in a movie, or maybe even a song, or whatever. And I would always daydream about movies and video games, sometimes by flapping, which is like taking a finger or a pen and just, flap right in front of my eyes, go, yay, Sonic the Hedgehog, right there in my head. It wasn't until months later that we officially found out that I have high-functioning autism. And while I was more relieved to have an answer and then be concerned at that time, it still looked like nothing would really change. That this is how I am, this is how I'm always going to be, there would be no difference. Eventually around high school, I started to overcome certain symptoms like flapping because the Lord guided me to eventually get rid of making my comics and thinking all about them, because those comics were kind of the whole fictional world that I have stuck right inside my head. And I would always focus about them, but now that I got rid of them, I was able to focus on more important things like socializing, part that had to do with theater, so I could interact with theater people and I could socialize and stuff like that and have real friends. But even then, it still seemed like I was having certain problems with socializing with people. Like, though I would walk among them and be friends with them, I would never feel like I'm fully one of them, per se. Part of that had to do with like scheduling or transportation when it comes to things like, certain events for youth group or something like that. But I always would feel like there was something more, like there's still something about my autism that kept me from socializing to a much deeper degree than I have already. Now, I first started to officially believe in Jesus during a youth camping trip at Covenant Heights. Before then, I would know some of the basic stories from the Bible and, believe that God and Jesus exist. But because my lack of paying attention, among other things that have to do with my autism, I would never really understand the key points about His Word. It would be something that I would acknowledge before getting back to thinking all about Pokemon or Pac-Man once we get home from church. But during the last 2 nights of that trip, there was this speaker that talked about how Jesus died for our sins and that we become Christians by asking Him to come into our hearts and confessing our sins. I don't entirely remember how he said it, but somehow the way he did say it, as well as a really emotional video that played right after he spoke, actually came through to my learning disability to make me officially acknowledge, oh, Jesus died for our sins, and by confessing our sins and asking Him to come to our heart, we become Christians. So during the last night, I came to my youth group leader and asked him to help me pray, to ask Jesus to come into my heart. While I wouldn't say autistic people suffer per se, it does seem like we have trouble with always wanting to do or think or say something that has anything to do with movies or video games or comics. We're practically programmed to do it. It's one of the main reasons why we have trouble socializing with people. My mom once put it in her blog that an autistic trying to give up movies or video games may as well be like abstaining from water or breathing. And sadly, she hits it pretty close. Even today, it seems like I can't go through one moment without having one itty bitty thing that has to do with Disney, Casey Jr., Star Wars, Revan, the Transformers, Shockwave. Why didn't they show more videos? More. The Lord of the Rings, Marvel, Pac-Man, or what have you. And even if it's something I'm not obsessed about per se, it would sometimes be something that I want to talk about because it's something that they need to work on or need to be done, or something that just pissed me off. Oh, for Frank Bunker's sake, that shouldn't even exist! It was pure evil! They had so much potential! Why did they go in that dancing? It's so little offended me! Sorry. Like I said, just want to talk. But the way that Jesus has helped me is by trying to at least somewhat limitize my obsession for those things. Sometimes it has to do with like breaks that I'll do once in a while. Sometimes it's for a couple hours, sometimes a day. Sometimes a week or two, depending on how obsessed I am with this one show or this one particular video game. Most commonly, I give up things for Lent. And with Lent especially, I would restrict from those certain things to the point where I try to avoid looking at them, talking about them, or even thinking about them. So basically, just basically 47 days of trying to pretend those things don't even exist. And this is a very, very slow process. It has some ups and downs, but that's mostly how Jesus has met me, to very slowly and yet surely try to overcome what I am and be much closer to a normal person than who I was than just 10 years ago.